Larres is a professor of history and international affairs at the University of North Carolina. He joins us now from Chapel Hill in California. Really good to have you back with us, Professor. The announcement of a trade deal with the EU was arguably the biggest substantive moment from Trump's trip. Europe has promised hundreds of billions of dollars in investments in the US in return for a 15% tariff on EU goods instead of a heftier 30% tax that Trump had threatened. It's been described as the least worst outcome by some analysts. What's your view about this deal?
Well, first, the good news. The good news is that actually a trade deal was concluded, that there will not be a transatlantic trade war, which is something to be appreciated. The bad news is clearly that Europe was in a very weak position. It had to negotiate from weakness because Trump clearly had all the economic arguments on his side and also the security arguments and the arguments regarding Russia and the Ukraine war. So in the end, 15% is probably not too bad. That was the best deal Ursula von der Leyen, the EU Commission President, said, which could be achieved. But considering that at the moment we have something like 2.5% to 3% tariffs on EU exports to the United States, 15% is, of course, a lot worse than what was the case in the previous years.
Another issue that Trump was pressed on while he was in Scotland was the Russia-Ukraine war. We know initially Donald Trump was very keen on getting the two sides to agree to some sort of a ceasefire. Those attempts seem to have failed so far. What do you make of Trump's influence on that front?
Well, his influence is clearly not as big as he thought himself. We know that he talked about 24 hours, in which he wanted to conclude the war. Then he offered several ceasefires to Vladimir Putin, and all of these ceasefires were not taken on by Putin. He just ignored them. He is really playing Trump, and Trump has realized that himself. So he is losing patience. He is becoming increasingly critical of Putin, and now he's trying to put some more pressure on him by economic means, by third-party sanctions on countries which purchase Russian oil and gas. Whether that will work, we'll have to see. At the moment, the Kremlin is intensifying its attacks on Ukraine. It is ignoring Trump, and it doesn't seem to be too impressed by Trump's rhetoric. We will see whether in 12 days' time, when that deadline which Trump has imposed comes to an end, whether things will change. Personally, I doubt it. I think that Trump has really a weak hand regarding Ukraine and Russia, and Putin knows it, and I think he is playing Trump.
And towards the end of Trump's Scotland trip, US and Chinese negotiators were meeting in Stockholm to talk about their tariff situation. It looks like after 2 days of talks, the 90-day reprieve that was agreed upon in May could be extended further. That situation between the world's two largest economies could prove to be more difficult to resolve, couldn't it?
Yes, but it's good news that at least, the pause in tariffs between the US and China has been extended, that Trump is not willing to enter into a trade war with China, that decoupling with China, which was much talked about among American politicians, is not going to happen under Donald Trump. And I think so the extension of the uneasy tariff pause is a good thing. Trump clearly wants to meet with Xi Jinping sometime in September, perhaps even earlier, at on the sidelines of the APEC summit. Perhaps he, as we know, he likes big summits. He likes to be in the limelight, and he clearly wants a summit with Xi Jinping and wants to hammer out more permanent details during that summit. And I guess he will probably get that summit, and the extension of the tariff pause, of course, points into that direction. Europe, incidentally, is in a very difficult position. situation, because they just had a very difficult EU-China summit, which didn't resolve many trade conflicts between these two big partners. And also, of course, as we just heard, the EU-US agreement on tariffs was much less successful for the EU than they had expected. So Europe finds itself really between two economic partners it needs to get on with, and it has very strong economic relations with, and it really is the country, the continent, which is losing out. And I think that is quite worrisome, and many European politicians have expressed their unhappiness with that deal agreed between the United States and the EU by the EU Commission President. We will see whether that deal can be improved in the near future, but for the time being, we can of course say that at least with 50% tariffs, a certain predictability has returned to transatlantic trade relations if that deal sticks. And with Donald Trump, you never know whether he will really stick to the 15% as agreed, or whether in a few weeks' time he has different ideas.
Okay, Professor Klaus Larres, great to get your thoughts as always. Thank you.